Hey guys, it's M4J here and welcome back to the Jeffries network here on OpenTTD. So as promised, today we are starting off by rebuilding some of the southern approaches to Guard City St. Mark, mostly focusing on the central section. I don't think I do any more rebuilding anywhere else. It's mostly, well, as I say, the central section. Here what I'm doing is moving some of these tracks slightly so that I can move the tunnels that go underneath the approaches to GSMA. I think it's like the third or fourth time in recent history that I've had to do that in terms of moving the tunnel. The main reason I did it was the actual line that we had originally that joined up with the line that heads down towards Great Winfield Airport. I wanted to move it because I think the turn was too tight, and it was also getting in the way of moving some other lines around in order to adjust the approaches to the station. So I'm a lot happier with the result now. I think all three lines that I've moved look a lot nicer, and as I say, it allowed me to rebuild the southern central approach to Guard City St. Mark, which is what I'm just about to start doing here. Once we finish this, I do then head over to Gronnwell and rebuild the approaches to there as well, including building two new depots, one to replace the original two that were there, and one for new express services that will be operating on the East Coast line, which you will see in a future episode. Not too far in the future either, because I have actually planned out the line off camera. I've done quite a lot of off-camera work between last episode and this, bearing in mind that I recorded the footage for this I think a week and a half before you guys get to see it, and I'm actually recording the audio on the Monday, so I think this is Friday's episode if I've done my maths correctly. So yeah, off camera, the biggest thing that I've done off camera, I have started the speed limit spreadsheets, and so far I have done the Guard City Great Northern line between GSG and Honningville, which is where that line ends and the Great Northern route starts. So even though I did all the waypoints as far as Beffingway, I haven't done all the speed limits there yet. I will come back and do those. And I've also done the entirety of the West Wind line between Guard City St. George and Sunnington, which now means technically I can start running trains between GSG and Sunnington once more. I'm going to put it on ice for a little bit longer. Basically, I want to get the North Valleys line done as well between Sunnington and Warnbridge Airport. So even if I don't then get the line done as far as Beffingway on both Great Northern and North Valleys, I have still got the ability to run trains on that route. As of running trains from GSG on the Great Northern route, I can run trains as far as Honningville. I can also run trains as far as, is it Neffingberg Springs, I think it's called. I will need to put a couple more waypoints there, but in theory it is now possible. As for the West Wind line, all the waypoints have been put in place. The spreadsheets at the moment are set to private. However, if people do want to see them, just ask in the comments and I'll make it available for you guys to be able to see. Right, what am I doing here? Oh yeah, here I'm adding some additional in and out routes, doing a lot of rebuilding, new junctions and all that kind of thing. The goal being to be able to get more trains in and out in any one go. I've also moved the lines that run down towards New Rennington from, I've got the name of the damn station, hang on, got the game open, so let's scooch on over. There's a siren outside. Funingley North. Between Funingley North and New Rennington, I moved the tracks over a tile. Main reason being so that I can get an additional in and out line for GSMA Central. Right, this is the point where I move over and start rebuilding the approaches to Gronnwell. Whilst this is playing out on screen, I'm actually, first of all, I'll talk about how happy I am with the result from Gronnwell. I'm really happy. I think it looks really, really nice. Very, very happy with it indeed. Particularly as I've chucked loads of trees around there now. Again, I'll just get it open on my other screen so I can talk you through what the result looks like. So I've covered it in trees. Again, we have the issue of building approach lines on corners, but I think I've done a pretty good job there. And I'm not sure if they're actually available yet or not. I mean, high speed won't be being reintroduced for a little while anyway. But I've built this station now with the the mindset that the high-speed lines will actually be running through a tunnel under the water. If that turns out to not be possible still, I'll either put it on ice and wait until it is possible, or I'll just build temporary bridges and then change it when I'm able to. So yeah, whilst this is all playing out on screen, I want to talk to you a little bit about rail news. It's something that was brought to my attention in last week's episode via a comment. So the 319s, which used to be used on Thameslink and First Capital Connect services, also Southern and Connex and some other train operators, a lot of them have been brought off lease, mainly because of the introduction of the Class 700s. And the majority of them had been transferred to Northern, and some of them were starting to be retrofitted with diesel generators. And at the time, and this is why I was a little bit confused when it was first brought to my attention, at the time they were referred to as 319 Flexes. Now they've been given their own designation, which I knew they'd been given their own designation, but I've forgotten what it was. They're now Class 769 Flex trains. And the big news is GWR are leasing some, 19 to be precise. And this is what I like about the UK rail industry at the moment, is the upcycling, the recycling, the reusing and the cascading. I do know that the north of England does get a bit of a rough time of it at times, because they do tend to get London's hand-me-downs, but I suppose the good news in this respect is it's not London. Sorry, it is London. It's not the north of England that's getting the hand-me-downs this time. It's the west of England. So the new units that are being brought in, they're mainly going to be operating between Reading and Gatwick Airport. They're also going to be used on routes between Oxford, Reading and Gatwick Airport. And this is where it gets clever. So 319s were designed and built with overhead line capabilities, so they had a pantograph, and also a third rail shoe, so they could operate on the southern network. With the diesel engine, they're being referred to as tri-mode trains, because they can then operate on diesel power, overhead power, or third rail power. Now, in my opinion, that's not tri-mode, because there's only still two forms of power there. There's diesel and there's electric. I know that the third one is because one's overhead and one's third rail, but in theory, that then means that all trains that can operate on AC or DC are bi-mode, which they're not. So for me, tri-mode would be diesel, electric, and something like hydrogen, which is now starting to be developed. So I'm not sure I like the tri-mode classification, but I do think these trains are very, very clever. So what this then means is they'll operate on diesel power between Oxford and Reading, or between Oxford and Didcot actually, and then they'll operate on overhead power between Didcot and Reading, and then they'll operate on diesel power from Reading to, let's say, the next station beyond Reading, and then third rail between that station and Gatwick Airport, which is a very, very efficient way of running a train. It means you don't have to have lots of different train types operating lots of different routes. Currently it's all diesel operated anyway, so it is still one train, but it's a lot cleaner, effectively just having the diesel power between Oxford and Didcot. There are certain gradients, so there are still emissions issues, but it's a lot cleaner now that the train can just switch to electric wherever electric is available. As I say, I just don't agree with the tri-mode name. So it's good that these trains are getting a new lease of life as well, because, you know, if you refurbish an old train and replace every single component in that train interior-wise, then effectively you have a brand new train. There's this real stigma in the UK. I know in certain cases, some like the 313s, I think they're pretty much all going to be scrapped when they're replaced by the 717s. But old trains like the 319s that were designed for a long lifespan and have been consistently refurbished throughout that lifespan, they are as good as new. You know, they run just as well as some of the modern trains. The Electrostars are a really good example of this. Some of the Electrostars are nearly as old as some of the oldest trains on the network now, but because they're continuously refurbished, and also because they belong to a family of trains that are continuously being developed, they're still considered new or new-ish. So I hope that the 769s becomes kind of the catalyst for more of this conversion and reusing and upcycling. I think the majority of it has actually been inspired by what VivaRail have been doing, which is really, really good stuff. More VivaRail news I'm sure will be hitting us in the very near future. I know that the original prototype train is still doing testing, because I follow them on Twitter now. I might post a link to their Twitter actually in the description of one of these videos, but so you can go and check out what they're up to there. And the US thing does seem to still be happening as well, which is really, really encouraging. It's a massive boost for the UK rail industry, particularly with the 319s becoming 769s, because it's the leasing company Porterbrook who are actually working with, I'm trying to remember the name of the company now, but they're the ones who are sort of spearheading the move. I know Northern were involved at the start as well, but I think it's kind of this particular order, because it's not for Northern, has broken off on a tangent slightly. But yeah, thank you for bringing that to my attention. Still don't like the name Tri-Mode, because they're not Tri-Mode, they are most definitely Bi-Mode. And I think that's a media term that's been coined, because everyone looks at it and goes, oh, 3 types of power, therefore it must be Tri-Mode. That's not really how it works. It's 3 different, you know, 3 different forms of power is really where the mode comes from. Anyway, I did look actually recently, with regards, going back to OpenTTD, the British, I always forget what it's called, Great British Train Pack, whatever it's called, to see if there's any new trains on there that I wasn't aware of, and if I could update the GRF and actually get those new trains. Doesn't seem to be any as of yet. I think a couple more have been made and not coded yet, and there's a very, very long list of assets that either haven't been made or haven't been coded. All of them, I'm sure, will enhance the game. Joker's also been busy this last week and a bit. He's released 2 new patches. One was to fix an issue with the previous patch, but he's added in some more cool new features. I didn't see channels on the list, which is why I'm not 100% sure if he's actually implemented it yet. I know he's definitely doing it, I just don't know whether it actually exists at the time of recording this. But yeah, awesome stuff. I think actually, I mean, I say this a lot anyway, but he deserves a huge round of applause, really, because I do look at other patches, not to play them, but just to compare, you know, what's good about Joker's patch compared to other patches, and he is the most consistent updater of patches I've seen so far, and I'm sure he is in general, and lots of other people have started to take notice of that as well. So it's all well and good making a patch, but to keep it consistently updated with new features like Joker is doing is very, very, very nice indeed. So a huge thank you to him again for making the patch and making it so nice. Right, I suppose I should talk about what's going on the screen right now. So Gronnwell, as I say, it's a bit tricky because 2 lines actually curve away to the west, directly south of the station, and the other 2 lines, which don't yet exist, but I have built the in and out routes here as placeholders, they will eventually form the East Coast line, which, unlike the South Coast and the West Coast lines, doesn't really follow the coast for the majority of its route. A bit like the East Coast main line in England, actually. It's only when you really get into the northeast of England and the beginnings of Scotland that you actually see the sea from the East Coast. Particularly, I mean, okay, yes, it runs from London, but even when you go up as far as Peterborough and York and Doncaster, you're still a good, like 20, 30, 40, 50 miles away from the sea. So, it's a bit of a misleading name, I suppose, but yeah, we're copying it because we copy everything in the UK in this series, or we get inspired by, I think is the correct term. We don't copy anything, we are inspired by the real life UK rail network. But all these lines have been put in place. They are not placeholders. These are actually what the lines will be once the main line is complete and trains begin to run. And then, as I said, the high-speed line will continue to run next to it. The high-speed line itself, there are big areas, particularly just coming out of Guard City, where it's all tight bends, and this area here where it's quite tight bends as well. Not necessarily at Gronnwell, but where it joins the coast and then turns north. That will all be rebuilt, because I really don't like it. I didn't like it when I first built it. Didn't realise how bad it was until just now. Well, I'll say just now, like within the last few days when I've actually been redoing all the RI work. And yeah, it's going to get redone. So let's quickly switch back over to my game screen so I can talk you through it a bit more. Like I said, there's 2 depots now. There's one just to the north of the river, that runs under the bridges on the Great Northern route, and that is Gronnwell, probably Gronnwell Traction Maintenance Depot, so Gronnwell TMD. That's mainly going to be for stopping services, so all the suburban services that come out of Gronnwell. And I say suburban, there's no real towns or cities nearby. Flynn Town is probably the closest, and even that's a fair distance. But all the slow stopping services will use that depot predominantly, particularly the ones that start from Gronnwell. There will be other stopping services that go into Gronnwell and out again that don't use the depot. The other depot, let me switch back, which you see me building now on screen. This is for the more express services. So I want to have an express service that runs between Gronnwell and Bar City. That's where that service will originate, at this depot, which is going to be Sludhead TMD, because it's actually closer to Sludhead than it is to Gronnwell. By doing that and keeping those services separate, we should be able to run more trains consistently without there being issues. Since I've finished recording this episode, I have actually gone back and added some flyovers. You can see one on the screen there. I added a second one by the stopping depot, which, yeah, I think at the moment it's just a track. It's the leftmost track entering the station from the slow lines on the Great Northern route. I replaced that with a flyover. The main reason being, again, so you can actually have trains entering and leaving the depot whilst also having trains entering and leaving from the main line without there being conflicting movements. It's all about that at the moment. It's all about making the station more refined, more streamlined, get more trains in and out in one time. We add an additional platform onto the western end of the station here as well. They are all electrified. I might de-electrify the really short platforms at the end. In fact, one of them hasn't been electrified still, and I might go back and de-electrify the other two, as I say, just to make it so that diesel trains only will use those platforms. It will mean having to rebuild some of the crossovers, in fact a lot of the crossovers, because 2 depot roads then won't be electrified either. So I mean, I can still go ahead and do that, it's no problem. And then they'll be used on the little branch line that branches off from the Great Northern route, not far outside Gronnwell. Besides that, I mean, that's it. I'm really happy with the final result. I think when you build it and it's all brown tiles and it all looks a bit ugly, then I'm not really that pleased with how it looks like that. But as soon as you sort of redo the landscape and you add the trees in and the towns grow back where you've demolished buildings, it really does make a massive difference to the aesthetics of it all. And in general, I am really pleased with the outcome of the Gronnwell rebuild. It's probably the best one that I've built so far, in that I managed to reuse the existing lines no problem. A couple of crossovers are perhaps a little too close to Flynn Town Station, but apart from that, I'm really happy with the outcome there. I think that the biggest criticism I have is the dive under tunnels that I've built, which carry the slow lines under the fast lines that become the Great Northern route. I think they're a little too long, considering the signal blocks, and there's only 4 of them. Because of the way the lines have been built, I could only fit 4 tunnels in, so that might end up being an issue. But at the moment it seems okay, and one of the ways I have combated that is to actually make the slow lines and the fast lines cross over a little bit, so that if all 4 slow lines are taken up, occupied, and another slow service arrives, it can in theory cross over to the fast lines, and then cross back over to the slow lines just before the platform entrances. So particularly if it's coming from the East Coast route, if it's coming across the Eastern 3 slow line bridges, it can cross over to the westernmost fast line, and then just after the Great Northern fast lines join, it can start crossing back over to the slow lines again. There is plenty of space for that to happen. I might add another flyover with that in mind. But yeah, apart from that, I'm really happy with the outcome. And you can see I'm just digging out a new river. Something I will be doing in future episodes actually is going back and digging out water channels. I particularly want to build a canal between Guard City and Bar City to run freight barges on. as another form of transporting cargo. Right, that is the end of this episode, guys. It's a short one again. They're all pretty short from here on. And I'm actually struggling to think what to do in next episode now, because most of the rebuilds have actually been done. Like the major rebuilds have all been done. All the stations out of Guard City, they've all had their approaches rebuilt. Sunnington, Sanley, Gronnwell, and there was another one. They've all been rebuilt. So I suppose the next thing is to go to stations like Fort Flonwood and rebuild the approaches there. Although Fort Flonwood, because most of it is a through station anyway, I don't think that's too much of an issue. But we will see. Until then though, guys, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and of course if you're enjoying the series, drop some comments down below with ideas for future episodes. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, be sure to click the subscribe button. If you have already subscribed to the channel, thank you guys for your continued support, and until next time, I will see you soon.